Okay, hello everybody. We are live and let's get started. So, today I'm going to be talking um, about something that doesn't always come up when we're talking about like behaviors like tantruming, aggression, protests, like those kind of like challenging behaviors. But it completely changes how your child responds to you, and that is trust. Recently I had a session where a dad said something to me that really had me thinking. He said, I don't trust him, and I tell him that I don't trust him, referring to his child, of course. And while I absolutely understand the frustration behind that statement, I also know how problematic it can be. When your child believes that you don't trust them, they stop trying to meet your expectations. They stop trying to show you who they really are or who they can be, because deep down, they think to themselves, well, you already think that I'm going to mess up. You already think that I'm going to lie. You already think that I'm going to fail. So why try in the first place? In a way, they reflect what you believe to be true about them. So if they know that you believe that they will disappoint you, they are going to try to prove you right. So today we're going to talk about why trust is very, very important if you want more cooperation and less behaviors, what trust actually looks like in everyday parenting, what breaks trust, and most importantly, how you can start rebuilding it if you feel like you are maybe missing some trust with your child. So, if you have ever said to yourself or anybody, like, my child doesn't listen unless I yell or unless I repeat myself 20 times, they lie, they're sneaky, they avoid me, they're stuck in power struggles like every day, nothing goes smooth. Or if you're a parent and you're already thinking, they lie and they manipulate, and I just can't trust that. I can't trust them. Then this Q&A is for you, because a lot of behavior challenges come after the relationship has been damaged, not before. It's very important to understand that without trust, your child doesn't feel safe enough to cooperate. And it's important to know that your child is not going to come and tell you, hey, mom, dad, I don't trust you. It's actually going to show in behaviors. And what lack of trust looks like in your day to day, it looks like defiance, avoidance, manipulation. But really, what's underneath all of that is a child who doesn't emotionally feel safe. Now, let's go over why this happens in the first place. Why does trust break down in this process, knowing that you as a parent have their best interests in mind, you do everything for them? Like, how in the world is it possible that trust is broken down between you guys? It's important to understand that children don't act out just to be bad. They act out when they feel misunderstood, when they feel unsafe, and when they don't feel seen or believed in. And when a child hears or senses that their parent doesn't trust them, they internalize that belief. They think to themselves, well, you think I'll mess up, so then I guess I will. You think I'm sneaky, so I will prove you right on that. Why is that? Again, this is not a conscious effort on your child. It's all part of their internal process, because kids naturally want to please you. They're not purposefully doing this. It's an internal mechanism that happens in them. They want to please you. So if you believe that they're sneaky, they're going to prove you right. If you believe that they're not going to do something that you told them to do, they're going to prove you right. They mirror what we reflect back to them. And when that trust is broken, even accidentally, it creates that rupture in the relationship. Now, again, very, very important to know that this does not look like your child telling you, mom, dad, I don't trust you. They don't have the emotional skills or the emotional awareness to do that. What it actually looks like is constant back and forth, power struggles, avoiding responsibility, not tolerating being told no, saying things like, you don't believe me anyways, you weren't going to do that anyways, you will X regardless. Or when you ask them a question that you know they have the answer to, they're going to deflect and say, I don't know, I don't know, and not actually engage in that conversation with you. So you might think that they're just being difficult, but really, they have learned that it's not safe to open up. It's not safe to make a mistake. And that mistrust actually triggers more behaviors. As a parent, you may think, well, they should know. I have talked to them. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. Kids will learn way more by your actions than what the words that you give them. So we need to teach with our actions, not with our words. The good news with that is that trust can actually be rebuilt, and it starts with you, and it's something that you as a parent can take complete ownership of and start changing your behavior in order to rebuild that trust. I'm going to walk you through some strategies that you can start doing today to rebuild trust. Now, before I start with that, I do want to be clear that this is not it's simple to understand that when trust is broken, they're less likely to be cooperative. It's not easy in practice. So I am not saying that you're going to be able to just implement this and trust will be rebuilt. Trust is the foundation on which everything builds on top. So just keep that in mind. It's important to be consistent. It's important to actually take this and work on it on your day to day and be intentional about those changes that you're going to be making as a parent. Okay, so strategies that you can start using today to build trust is number one, watch your words. Language is so important, especially when things go wrong. Instead of saying things like, I can't trust you, you always lie, you never listen, this is not okay, or basically engaging in any type of negotiation, explanation, or logical reasoning, if you feel compelled to ask your child to explain to you why they did what they did, pause and instead try say something like, you're having a hard time and I totally understand. Or I know you're capable, let's figure this out. This works because your words become their inner voice. And again, kids reflect what we believe about them. So if you speak in a way that builds their belief in themselves, they are more likely to try and match that belief. It also reduces the power struggles in the moment when you take away the opportunity to engage in that back and forth. Number two is to repair the rupture. Even if you didn't mean to break their trust, and even if you don't agree with them sometimes, you can say things like, I am sorry I thought that. I am sorry I doubted you. I got that wrong and I want to do better. Or I know it didn't feel fair. Thank you for being honest. Again, even if you don't agree with them, like you don't have to agree that this kid wants more iPad time and you think it's not necessary for them to have more iPad time, but you can validate their feeling and tell them like that's okay. You didn't feel like that was fair. Thank you for your honesty. You acknowledging their feeling or admitting a mistake does not mean that you're lowering your standard, that you're changing your mind or giving in. It just shows them that you are on their side and that you're willing to listen to their side. A lot of the times when we have adult, very valid reasons for why we do what we do, we tend to default to, well, because I said so. And that is actually trust rupturing, not trust building. You acknowledging their feelings works because repair actually builds that respect and it shows your child that mistakes don't mean rejection and that mistakes are actually repairable. Um, Number three is to focus on connection over correction. When your child acts out, pause before reacting is very important. I always say this to know why this is happening in the first place, because If you act in accordance with something that is not the reason why that's happening in the first place, you may actually be accidentally making the behavior worse over time. So instead, what you can do is ask yourself, what is this behavior trying to tell me? Is this true defiance, or is this a sign that my child doesn't feel safe? Is there anything I can do in this moment to help my child feel safe? You can try things like playing, curiosity, just observing him, pausing, creating some space, and not jump in at conclusions and trying to get something out of your child. Connection regulates the nervous system. So when kids feel safe, they will listen more and they will fight less. And number 4 that I have for you is actually trust them out loud. Just the same negative statements that you have for them, try to flip them. If it ever like feels hard, say something like, I believe you can handle this. I trust that you're telling me the truth. I know that you're working hard and I know it. I know this is hard for you. Like, flip the script on them so that they start believing what you're saying. Again, this works because kids live up to this story we tell them about them. So tell one that they can grow into. Now, a top mistake to avoid for this is this: assuming that they're doing it on purpose, assuming that they're lying on purpose, assuming that they're being manipulative, assuming any of that. They might be scared of your reaction. This is not purposeful. This is something that they have learned. So they might be scared of your reaction, not necessarily trying to manipulate you. They might feel like they might feel ashamed that they're already going to fail no matter what they have to say, which is why they engage in that negative cycle of what appears like lying, manipulating, non-cooperation, all of that. So approach from a curiosity standpoint instead of assuming that they're doing it on purpose. And with that, I will see what we got for questions. Oh, wow. Why should I trust my child when they keep lying or hiding things? Shouldn't trust be earned? That is a great question. And I appreciate you voicing that concern because it sounds like you're talking about like limits and boundaries are very important. Trust is built. I wouldn't say that it is earned, and is built through interactions that you have with your child in which they trust that you mean what you say and you say what you mean. Probably somewhere along the way, because maybe it was a long day at work and you gave in into something along the way. They learn that you're going to change your word. That's why that part of what they keep lying and hiding is because they feel like they are not getting consistency from you. Lying and hiding is a lack of consistency from the environment. So the way that you can build that trust is through being consistent with your consequences, with your words, and the way that you show up with your child. If my child has broken my trust before, why should I assume they'll do better next time? I totally see what you're saying. Basically, why would I think that based on past history, why would I think this time would be different? The difference and what I encourage you to look at is that you're not putting this on your child. You, as a parent, are actually taking ownership of why that trust was broken in the first place. And the difference is going to be that you're going to do things differently. I would not, none of us would expect to get different results when we are doing the same thing over and over, right? So if your child has broken your trust before, is likely because of some inputs that they had from you, but those inputs are going to be different this time. We need to change our behavior as adults before we can expect our child's behavior to be changed. So that's how you can assume they'll be better next time, because you're going to do something different. I want to trust my child, but I am scared that they'll make a mistake if I don't stay on top of everything. This one comes up a lot. I see a lot of parents who constantly carry the responsibility of their child's success, whether it is getting on time in school, completing their homework, making sure that they go to their after school program, that they get on time there, that everything is completed. And of course, as a parent, I totally understand that you feel that responsibility because you want your child to succeed. What is happening is that your child is technically advocating that responsibility to you, and they're not able to take that ownership because no consequences happen for when mistakes occur. Mistakes are actually a very good learning strategy for a child and for any of us because it allows us to understand where we went wrong and what the consequences of that are. So, in your case, I know you mentioned like I'm scared they'll make a mistake. I actually would encourage you to ask yourself the question, why do I feel scared if my child makes a mistake? What does that tell me about myself? Does that tell me that I'm a bad parent? Like, why is this so important to me? So that you can get to the root cause of why you're carrying that responsibility. And you also can identify where your threshold is. What are your not negotiables? What are you okay with allowing to happen? And what are you not okay with allowing to happen? Yeah. I got a question. If I stop checking and correcting, how do I know things won't spiral out of control? Okay, super important. And I like this question for clarification purposes. I am not saying stop checking and correcting like altogether. What I am saying is to stop over correcting, over checking, over basically like bearing on that child. What I would recommend would be to be proactive about your expectations. Tell them exactly what you expect that to be. For example, okay, when you come home from school, you're going to have 1 hour of iPad between this time and this time. And at this time, that iPad is off. End of story. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to stop checking whether they are on iPad or not at times in which iPad wasn't allowed, or that if they go over that time, you won't not correct that. So just not overcorrecting or over checking. Make sure that your expectations are clear from the beginning and stand by them. And that's what I would recommend. How do I trust my child without being naive or careless? Also, a good question in terms of like, well, I don't want to basically give so much freedom that, it's naive on me to know. Like, you definitely, similar to what I mentioned before, you definitely want to be checking, but establish your expectations prior to and make it known to them what that will be so that nothing comes unexpected. I am not saying by any means like let go of everything. Kids need that guidance. Kids need boundaries. Kids need that we are checking them. The problem becomes when it becomes overbearing and we are almost too much on the overbearing side and we engage in those negotiations. When it's too much on the scale, that's when it becomes a problem. So we kind of have to walk that line of the middle of I'm checking you enough, but not too much to the point that I'm breaking your trust. So I would to trust your child without being naive or careless, I would just put rules in place that you're going to follow proactively and then follow those no negotiables for you. And I think that's all the questions that I have for today. So I will see you guys on the next one.